E360 TV proudly presents Messages of Inspirational Stories TV show. Live streaming now to millions of devices around the world on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook live streaming. Our shows are available video on demand on these channels. And we broadcast daily, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on these channels. On Mondays, Expanding Your Business. Tuesdays, Natural Health and Wellness. On Wednesdays, we cover mentoring our youth. And on Thursdays, our new show, Ideas Worth Knowing. And on Fridays, Women in Leadership. To be able to watch our television show on your favorite device, please go to e360tv.com and download the app for your favorite device. Brought to you by our producers and hosts, Jim Grant and donnaguinouard. Along with our host, Beata Severin Reed and Emersonbrantley. Supported by our admin team of Michaela Vidal and Gaia Guinois Balconi Weda. And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. The Messages of Inspirational Stories is proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com. That 6-minute webinar is really something because it enables you to have an introduction, a body, and a close, and a call to action, all within 6 minutes or less. Because your ideal client wants to know one thing: the product or service that they are looking to you. They want to know if you can help them in their hour of need. That's it. They don't care about all the other things you do. You might be able to pull a rabbit out of a hat on the stage. You might be able to cure cancer. You might be able to do all these wonderful things. They just want to know, what can you do for them? You know, this is the way the world turns, ain't it, Jeremy?
That sure is, Jim.
You know, Jeremy, you and I, we go back a little ways, a few months, several months, to be honest with you folks. And I've been impressed with Jeremy's story. He's been impressed with my story, considering I was never admitted to the psych ward. But Jeremy, share a little bit about your story, because I've got a friend of mine that I want to get you in touch with, because he is suffering from what you did, what you have, and also I'm talking about the neuropathy too. Go ahead.
Oh, well, fantastic, Jim. Thanks. And yeah, I'm sort of glad that you and I connected this year. It's been an amazing journey so far. And my health journey started really back in 2012 when I was diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And like a lot of people, I just kind of blew it off. I was in denial. Whenever you hear that diagnosis, right? All of a sudden it comes with these images of taking shots and poking your fingers every day and testing your blood, and a lot of people, just like I did, don't want to mess with that. But I progressively got worse over the years. I would go up and down, to be honest. There were times when it kind of come down a little bit and then it would go up, and eventually I ended up on 6 different medications, multiple injections a day, highest levels of insulin I could take every day. Ended up with neuropathy in my feet, which is just excruciatingly painful. And was told by my physician that I was at moderate to high risk of future amputation if I didn't do something, and slow down the damage to my nerve cells and my blood vessels in my feet. And what a lot of people don't realize is that diabetes is actually the number one cause of blindness, the number one cause of kidney failure, and the number one cause of amputations in the country, right? So I was pretty excited that I was able to find some natural ways this year to really focus on that and reverse my diabetes, get off my medications, and relieve the neuropathy in my feet, right? So yeah,
And save money. And save money.
and save money. That was the other thing, because I mean, let's be honest. You know, diabetes is a huge marketplace,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
For people, it costs a lot of money,
It sure does.
yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah, and then Jeremy, heard you folks out there in TV land know my story, but I'm just going to give just a slight recap of it. I suffered a widowmaker heart attack that I did not know I had. 75% of the people who wind up in an ER, almost 75%, according to UCA Medical report that they released January the 12th in 2009, and other locations, you can Google this, 75% of ER patients that suffer a heart attack had no cholesterol or warnings or anything like it. Words to that effect, it'll pop it up, trust me. And that opened my eyes. And, you know, I had the heart attack, had to have open heart surgery, quadruple bypass and all that. And just like Jeremy, we found a natural way to enhance our lives, to feel good, because today we're going to be talking about a topic called mindful eating and stress reduction, but we're going to take it a step further, because I have talked to a lot of people who did the same thing I did. They watched their diet relatively, exercised some, you know. They took good vitamins. They get regular checkups. Their blood pressure and cholesterol levels were good, so they were good to go. But how did that work out for me? Not very well. Because that heart attack, I always figured, you know, if I had all those things going for me, I had a safety net. But when I fell October the 29th at midnight back in 2021, I found out the hard way that just eating healthy and taking good vitamins and doing all these wonderful things, that safety net that I thought I had a big hole in it. So in addition to mindful eating and reducing stress, get in touch with Jeremy. Let me put his email address up there, or you can get in touch with us at the station here. Let's see here. There we go. Get in touch with Jeremy at yourbizprofitscoach.com. Because if you know someone suffering from diabetes and neuropathy, a man who is no longer type 2, he's got some good advice. And his hourly rate, he normally charges $500 an hour, but he's going to give you a $499.99 discount for an hour.
Can't beat that.
And all of our information we share here, you can also get in touch with all of us here at the TV station as soon as I find where. I normally have someone helping me here. But you can email us at inspiration@e360tvlive.com. Used to be just tv.com, but we had so many emails we had to go into another section there. So since we were live, they put live on there, which fits us all. But Jeremy, when it comes to, I was looking at some of the information you sent, and the one thing that stood out to me, sometimes when I look at my life, I'd get nervous, and I'd kind of like, well, I need to eat something, you know, to maybe prepare me to go to the next level or something. And that is definitely stressful eating, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, really the place to start with this conversation, Jim, is kind of just a little bit of a refresher for some, or maybe something new for others. But you know, inside of our bodies, we have what's called the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. They're two different types of nervous systems, right? So the sympathetic nervous system is the nervous system that puts us either into the flight, the fight, or the freeze. Okay, so this is the part of our nervous system that actually, when there's some kind of a threat or danger, it puts us into one of those three states, right? We either fight, we run, flight, or we freeze. Then there's the parasympathetic, which is the place where our body is in complete homeostasis, where we're actually in the healing mode, where we are at peace. And there's certain things that happen when that fight, flight, or freeze mode, that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and hormones are released that do a couple of things. One is it makes us, first of all, our body is going, there's some kind of a danger, right? There's some kind of danger coming. We need to get ready for it. And if we are constantly living in that state of the sympathetic nervous system, then what happens is we try to throw in some calories, right? We automatically, we will try to throw in calories to prepare us to run, right? Or prepare us to fight. But the downside to that is that at the same time, what the sympathetic nervous system does is it shuts down those parts of our body that aren't needed for fight, flight, or freeze. And one of those includes the digestive system. And so what happens is we are, we consume calories in preparation to run, but our digestive system is shutting down because it's taking all of the energy to those organs that you really need, your heart, your lungs, and your brain, right? In order to accomplish that fight, flight, or freeze.
That makes sense because if you're going to go to war, you want to use all of your resources at the point of attack or at the point of defense or a combination of the two. And as you were saying that, I'm not going to say it went through my mind, but a lot of people talk about they were so scared they could, almost did something. But anyway, if it shuts down the digestive system, it can't. But that's a very good point. I never have thought about that. And, your body is like a child in a way. It cannot reason. It can only, produce what you give it. And what I mean by that is that it's kind of like I like to use the example of the earth, the soil outside. Growing up on a farm, very familiar with that, growing cotton and corn and all that. But no matter what you plant in the soil is going to have to produce, whether it be nightshade, like a poison like nightshade or corn or whatever. The same is true inside your body. And whatever you give it there, that's all it's got to work with.
Yeah.
And, that's just, you are the mind with the body. That's the one thing you need to understand. And Jeremy, you gave a great explanation of how those two systems work. And it does make sense because when you're in a fight or flight mode, that's a survival mode. This is when you put your physical weapon on full auto.
Yeah, and actually, if you've ever been like in the military, like we have, or in law enforcement, oftentimes you understand that when you get into those life-threatening, those high-stress situations, what happens is that you get what's called auditory exclusion. You get tunnel vision. Right? All of these things are actually that sympathetic nervous system shutting down stuff, right? So when your body is doing what it's designed to do, when it perceives that there's a threat, right? It makes it, you don't need your ears so much. You don't need to have your peripheral vision. You need to be focused on that threat, right? It's going to take away the blood and the energy from your digestive system. It's going to move it to your heart, into your lungs, and to your brain there, right? So all of these different body systems begin to shut down. And it actually, what it does, and when we're taking that, okay, well, they might say, Jim and Jeremy, I'm not in law enforcement. I'm not in a life-threatening situation. But what happens is that in our current day, in our current society, we allow internal stress, right? We allow stressors. Yes, we're not fighting the saber-toothed tiger anymore, so we don't have that immediate, threat usually, right? But we've now taken financial stress and relationship stress, and we've actually created an internal stress, which tells our body, our sympathetic nervous system, right, because it's releasing now these cortisols and everything, is going, oh, there's a threat. Oh, there's a threat. Oh, there's a threat. So what happens is we actually end up living in a constant state of threat because of the way we've internalized outside things happening around us, right? We've created this stress inside of our minds. And so now our body is not digesting our food correctly. So
Mm.
even if you are eating halfway decent foods, then you're not digesting it right. So you're not getting all the absorption of the nutrients and minerals that you need.
Mm.
But what it also does is it's going, okay, stress, prep. So I need carbohydrates. I need carbohydrates so I can get ready to run, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
and that's it. And so all of a sudden we find ourselves sitting there eating a bag of chips, even though there's no threat, right? We're not in danger of anything, but because we've internalized all these stressors and
Right.
created this issue, our body's constantly thinking that we're under threat.
Yeah. And when you're living like that, your sleep, your digestion, everything, because you have created a monster in your life. And I just want to mention something here. Bill Heinrich is a good friend of mine. This is not an ad or anything like that. He published the book, wrote and published the book, The 7 Levels of Truth. Let me move that back a little bit. I know the goofs up the camera lights there, but The 7 Levels of Truth. Bill went through about 30 years of his life creating that book. After he lost his wife to cancer, he had to find himself. This is back in 1990, and Bill is the same age as me. He's 75 years of age, so he wasn't some kid out of college. He knew he had to quit drinking, but he really wanted to find out why he was so miserable. And I'm going to tie this in with what Jeremy just said there. His focus was to find an answer. And long story short, Bill came to the realization, like a lot of people have, there's only 2 major emotions on planet Earth. There's love and there is fear. Everything else on planet Earth can be labeled or listed underneath those 2 major headings. Fear is all physical. We're born into a world of survival. Are we going to have enough money? Do we covet our neighbor's new car? Let's be honest. Your neighbor gets a new car, I should have one too, right? I deserve one, I'm a nice guy. If you don't believe me, just ask me. I'll be glad to tell you, That's just us being human. That's all physical. Love comes from a much higher source, ladies and gentlemen. Bill said in his book there, it's your birthright to enjoy love, abundance, peace, and harmony in your life. That's what all brings calmness. So, okay, Jim, what else does that mean? You said you're going to tie it in what Jeremy said. Bill gave the best advice. When he sees something that falls under the category of fear, if it's stress about a bill, money you owe, if it's stress about, something you might lose or something like that, he just says, come here. Come here, fear. I'm going to love you. Because if I love you, I have already conquered you. If I continue to let you worry me, I am your slave. And Jeremy, when someone becomes a slave to something, they are limited to what the master of that slave will give. And
Absolutely.
when you're talking about the situation there, we become a slave to it, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, right? I mean,
No.
there's a lot of scientific research behind this. The American Psychology Association, they say that close to 30% of people stress eat, right? There's been long-standing neurological studies on the effects of the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So I want to make sure everybody understand. First of all, there's scientific backing behind what this is, and the fact is that living in a continued state of fear or of stress, right?
Yeah.
Allowing that to go, it not only affects your digestive system and your eating habits, but the cortisol, the constant release of cortisol, right? it actually damages your organs. And so what it does is on top of it, you eating badly and getting all the side effects of a poor diet, diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, all that stuff. You're actually reducing the lifespan of your organs, of your life, right? And that's why a lot of people who are in high stress, constant high stress jobs like police officers and stuff, you'll find that they'll survive their career, right? And then shortly after they retire, even though they're still young, they pass away, unfortunately, right? It has a long-term effect on your body. So what's that gonna do? Mindfulness diet, right? We all hear that, eating bad is bad for you, right? But we hear exercise, we hear, just pick better foods. And that stuff's all kind of important. But here's the thing, if we don't change the way that we think about food, if we don't change the way that we handle stress in our lives, we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage, right? If we can't handle, if we can't get into the mental place, into the mind consciousness, to be able to live in a place where we're at peace inside of our bodies, where we're not constantly having the stress, then we're loading the gun, per se, to eat poorly, right? I mean, we're setting us up for failure, because the fact is that it's a natural nervous system response if it feels threat to make you to do these, right? And so you have to address that.
Yeah. I remember back, I don't hate to interrupt you there, but I remember back when I was, younger, when I say younger, I'm talking about 50. I'm not talking about when I was 20. That's too dumb to figure this out. But anyway, I remember back then when something I'd have to do something, I'd be aggravated about something. I'd just automatically, for some reason, think I need to eat something and then I'm going to take care of it.
Yep.
And that fits right into what Jeremy is saying, because now I need all this fuel because I'm going to let a blaze fly up inside of me. And when you consider that we already have inflammation in our bodies, and we also are dealing with free radicals, oh my goodness gracious, it's a wonder if we even make it to age 10,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. I'm not being, I'm not joking about that, because it's no matter, I hate to go in this direction, but just for a moment, if you'll bear with me, because I hear a lot about how people say, well, I eat healthy and I take good vitamins. Well, so did I. And I mean, if you don't address the free radicals and the inflammation in your body, that just adds fuel to everything that Jeremy is talking about. That just keeps like shoveling coal into the furnace. And, it's the reason. There's an old saying, Jeremy. You ever heard the old proverb, sometimes where you stand depends on where you're forced to sit?
Yep.
Well, like I say, my safety net, I found out the hard way when I fell that night with a widowmaker heart attack, which is one of the most serious it is the most serious heart attack you can have. That's why they call it the widowmaker. But point being, I found out the hard way when I fell that night. My safety net had a hole in it. And Jeremy, coming from his experience of, being diabetic, and he's still, he's just not diabetic right now. He's no longer a type 2 diabetic. But being a type 2 diabetic and suffering from neuropathy, I mean, we have skin in the game. That's why we're so compassionate about this. We're not up here. We didn't read some book and say, oh, I'm going to talk to people about a widowmaker heart attack, since my family, they have heart disease, and I eat good and take, whoop-de-doo. We have skin in the game. We want to make sure that you make the right and informed decision for you. That's why we, encourage you to reach out to us and get in touch with Jeremy for more information, especially if someone's suffering from diabetes. My goodness gracious. Jeremy just shared with you where, diabetes, I mean, number one cause of blindness and kidney failure and amputation. And I mean, the list, plus you got who likes to poke themselves with needles every day? Ooh, that's an automatic turn off with me, It's
Yeah,
about,
yeah. It's definitely not definitely a fun, not a fun experience, right?
not at all.
Uh,
Not at all.
and and I think this is a great topic today because everybody always hears when it comes to diet, right? To eat the right
Yeah.
foods and exercise,
Yeah.
and the fact is if you don't deal with the consciousness part, the mind part, right? You're gonna struggle. It's not gonna, you can be eating healthy or think you are. You can not be overweight, but you could be eating yourself up inside because of stress, right? And the way that you think. And stress, I mean, let's boiling it down, stress is simply your perception. Stress is a perceptional issue. It's a perception of a situation, right? So the way that we decide in our minds to perceive, the bills that are coming in, or perceive the perceived slight that we got from our spouse, or anything like that, right? All of that determines whether we're going to internalize that as stress. And when we begin to internalize that stress, that's when we start making bad health choices.
Yep.
It's when we begin to not make choices that are going to sustain a place of wellness or homeostasis in your body, and we just do stuff that we know we shouldn't do,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, emotional eating is scientifically shown to be a huge issue, right? And emotional eating contributes to obesity, contributes to diabetes, contributes to arteriosclerosis, right? Contributes to all these different issues. So,
Oh, yeah.
if we can learn to control our emotions and our perception so that we don't evolve that into stress, we can have a huge impact on our health.
The food triggers that go off in our mind, they're not only a chemical type reaction to us, but they demand an emotional response. That's what we're talking about here because, whenever it's kind of like if you're standing close to a car and the car backfires, you're going to respond, you're going to jump. And that everything that goes off in our minds mentally, it will demand an emotional response. It's kind of like that yin yang thing,
Yeah.
Forever yin, there's a yang, as they used to say.
Absolutely, but that's a great analogy there, Jim, because when you do have something that is actually like an instantaneous perceived threat, right? Say you
Right.
hear a gunshot go off or you hear the backfire, right? It's a natural response of that sympathetic nervous
Oh,
system,
yeah.
right? You're either going to jump the heck out of the way, you're going to get down, or you're going to run, or you're going to get ready to fight, right?
Yeah.
It depends on exactly how you're wired, right? I know that when all of a sudden I'm startled by something, I'm up, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way I go. Other people, they duck, right? But that's a natural response. But the key is that your body is designed to, once it recognizes that threat's not there anymore, it shuts that down. You go back into a place of parasympathetic nervous system,
Yeah.
right? The problem is when we maintain our mind and are in a heightened place of stress for a long period of time, your body doesn't go back down. It doesn't do that natural response of going. It gets harder and harder for you to get into that place of the parasympathetic nervous system, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we actually, the more that we stay in that stressful state, we're actually creating a place inside of our bodies where it's just harder for us to get into that parasympathetic nervous system. So we stay like that, and our body's not designed to stay in that tension, right? We're not designed to stay in that heightened state all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And as you saw me there laughing, folks, I wasn't laughing at what Jeremy was saying. I laughed at what my bird brain mind brought to surface. The other day, it was about a week ago, I guess it was. I'm outside, not expecting anything. No wind's not blowing or anything. And all of a sudden, a crack of lightning, And that's a prime example that physical thing demanded an emotional, and in my case, also a physical reaction, because you want to make sure, what does your mind tell you?
Yeah.
I'm going to get struck by lightning. You take, for example, think about this, folks. Television really does influence us. Visual has a lot of impact on our minds, more so than audio. And all the times that we've seen back in the years, you hear about the West Nile virus, right? Remember you used to hear about that years ago? Well, if you didn't, everybody was talking about the West Nile virus, And you go outside and a mosquito would bite you on the arm. You slap and kill the mosquito. What would your brain tell you? West Nile virus.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. See, that's the way our brains work. And that's why we need to be aware of that, because your brain is just going to give you what you put in it.
Yeah.
You can't shovel sand in your brain and expect it to give you gold. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So I think, I want to make sure that we leave our audience with some actual things they can do. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's important, right? We want to make sure that we talk about some things. Okay, great. Jim, Jeremy, you've told us, that we need it, but how can we actually do that, right? Well, I understand that, according to studies, right, that people who reported overeating because of stress, they say that they do it because it distracts them from the stress, right? So I'm eating to distract myself, right? to draw my attention away from my stress. So okay. If that means that, what we're doing is we're trying to just relieve ourselves from stress. Let's not even talk about not getting that place of stress first. But what other activities can you do to distract yourself from stress, right? Well, maybe when you start feeling yourself getting that place where you need to distract yourself from that stress, instead you get up and you go walk around your yard for 5 minutes, right? You just get up and go walk around. Take your dog out, go for a walk. I'm not talking about, because I know some people go, well, I don't want to go exercise. I'm not even talking about getting exercise. I'm just talking about distracting yourself, right? Maybe you pick up that crossword puzzle book off your coffee table and you decide to spend 5 minutes working on the crossword puzzle, right? So these are all different ways that you can take your mind off of that stress, right? And that's not even addressing the fact that we don't need to be internalizing all these outward things into stress,
right?
But, meditation, right? That's an important thing, right? Getting into that state of consciousness, just practicing stop and take 5 to 10 really deep belly breaths, right? And this is not only is this good for your oxygen, but here's what a lot of people don't realize is that the biggest nerve in your body is the vagal nerve, right? And it runs all the way down from here to the out, right? And it runs throughout your body and it branches off and it comes out in your ears and comes out in other places of your body as well. You can actually stimulate this vagal nerve, right? But by taking those deep belly breaths, it helps to get that vagal nerve under control, which is part of your nervous system, and it helps to balance things out. So just stopping and taking deep breaths. And guess what? That's free, right? Yeah. You can just sit there and getting into that place of doing that diaphragmatic breathing, right? So so we actually, when we talk about neuroplasticity and getting into neurolinguistics and getting into those types of things, we actually have a thing where we take a deep breath and we breathe in for 4 seconds, we hold it for 4 seconds, we breathe out for 4 seconds and hold that for 4 seconds. Right? And you just do that about 10 times, and I promise you'll go, holy crud, what just happened?
Yeah. I did something like that because when I went to my cardiologist back in the end of August, a few weeks ago, he checked me out. Of course, I had to drive to get there an hour. I drank a big tumbler of coffee because I'm a coffeeholic. And I had to deal with traffic. I had to park about a half a mile away, so I got up there, and it's up on the 3rd floor, and a bunch of people at the elevator, so I took the steps. So I got up there, they measured my blood pressure, it's 147 over something, and it's just a little high, and I'm not really concerned about it or anything like that. I said, yeah, I told him what I did. And he says, go home and take your blood pressure and let us know what it is. I said, because it's normally under 120. And so I sat down, and I did this. And the blood pressure machine does not lie. I started practicing these deep belly breaths, relax. And I had a mindful attitude of thank you. Thank you for the heartbeat in my veins. Thank you for the breath in my lungs. Thank you for my animals that I love. Thank you for my home. As I'm breathing this in, I'm conditioning the whole body. I took my blood pressure, and at age 75, and I didn't have to study for this, guys, so that's a plus for us older fellas, 117/65.
Wow.
What does that tell you? I mean, you can't fool. A blood pressure machine is kind of like a lie detector test. You can't. It's kind of like trying to lie to your mother or your dad. You can't pass those tests. So forget it. You can't fudge those tests. That's for sure. But I tried that deep breathing, and just relaxing my mind, being thankful, and let the dust settle in your life. Let the real you shine. 117/65. And, I was plumb proud to tell him that one,
And how long did that take you to achieve that? So
3 minutes, maybe 4, something like that. Just a
so
few
in
minutes.
3 minutes, you dropped your blood pressure from...
Yeah, what they said was 147 over almost 75 or 80 or something like that. It was up high,
Yep.
For me it
so
was.
117, right?
117/65.
Which is amazing. That's a young man's blood pressure, right? That's an athlete's blood pressure right there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you didn't do it by popping another pill,
No.
right? You did it in here, and it transferred to here, right? And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Our bodies are divinely created to heal themselves.
Yes, they are.
If you think about the magnificence of everything that happens in your body every single millisecond of every day, right? It's a miracle, right?
Yes.
It is completely. But we have the power within ourselves, right? We have the power to heal ourselves. We have the power, and that's a whole nother episode going into and quantum medicine, and I could talk about that forever. But we have the ability inside of us. Our body's designed, right? And all of these different things that happen, it's doing to keep us in this perfect state of homeostasis, this completely thing of wellness. How, right? The body knows what it needs. It knows what it needs to do, right? And if you just get out of your own way.
There you go. That's exactly what popped in my mind when you said that. Get out of your own way.
If you get out of your own way, right?
In other words, put your ignorance in the closet.
Yeah, exactly, right? But you can actually think of that. So all you did was you focused on getting your body into that place. And all of a sudden you saw that your blood pressure came down, right? But did you know that you're not unique in that? We can actually, as natural health practitioners, we can lead people into achieving that on their own, right? To deal with serious issues in their body, blood pressure, blood sugar, autoimmune disorders.
Oh, yeah. And on the ticker tape there on our marquee, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, that has got a tremendous message in there. And just by asking what you want, we've all heard the story, I forget the little rhyme, how life was willing to give me more, but I only bargained for 2 cents. But I mean, the strangest secret's there. And it's a snapshot of what we're talking about. It's very beneficial for everyone. But I remember reading a story. I think it might have been a Reader's Digest. I don't know. This goes back into the early 70s. I remember that because it kind of, made an impression on me being a young man and not having any medical knowledge other than, you put a Band-Aid on a scrape or cut or something. But this guy was writing about his mother. She was elderly. She had terminal cancer. And to me, elderly back then was probably 70, let's be honest, okay? And she was just, she took everything in stride. And for somehow or another, I don't know where she came up with this, but what she did, she would sit in her comfortable chair with her feet on the ground, not with her legs crossed, because even with blood pressure, they tell you, just to sit with don't cross your legs and all that, okay? She sat there, she closed her eyes, and all she did was visualize good air coming in, bad air going out. And the man said that she described it as after about 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes, she would feel herself start to drift a little bit. And then she centered her focus down on the cancer, the areas that she had cancer. And she goes in for a checkup about 4 months later because because they'd done everything they could. They just got given her medication. And the doctors were shocked. Her cancer was gone. That's how powerful your mind is. That is the why we need to go more, get away from the binge eating and all that. Mm-hmm. If you want to get the best out of your food, that's why you should just calm down and give thanks for your food.
Yeah.
That's very, very important in life. It really, truly is. Go ahead.
I think you're right. And we could do probably multiple episodes on how to use the brain, your mindfulness, to heal things. I mean, there's some fabulous literature out there on it as well. If you haven't read Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, it's a really, really good book. I mean, he writes a lot of books on mindfulness and actually documenting how people have healed themselves from things like cancer and whatnot. And your mind has the power, when we begin to center. But what you're explaining that lady was explaining, I mean, that's literally what you're doing in meditation, right? Is you are centering yourself. You are getting beyond your body because I don't care what religion you are, anything like that. Most of us know that we are a physical and a spiritual being, right? I mean, there's more to your body than just the skin that you see or the bones that you see, right? We're electromagnetic, we have biophotons that are going, into our body. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And when we're able to do that, when we are mindful, we get control of our breathing, in meditation, we call it the fire breath and the ladder breath, and we're just able to center ourselves. We're getting into that place of the original being of our body, right? We're getting into that center. We're connecting with that field inside of us. And when we can do that, it's able to release those things to heal those parts of our bodies and get us into a place of complete wellness. And, most of our issues are the way we think. And I'll share a prime example because I know that you're a firm believer in us, that of the power of stories, right? And what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of your illnesses are what's called psychosomatic, right? And I was many years ago, I was a foster dad, right? I had a lot of foster kids. And I had one young boy that was 3, but was on all kinds of medications when he came to live with me. And, he was sick all the time. But we got him off all those medications within a week of him being with us, because his environment had changed. All of a sudden his mind has changed. But every time that he had to go visit his biological mother, because we had to take him to visits or whatnot, and it was a bad visit, within 3 hours, he'd have 104-degree fever. It'd be completely fine beforehand, and this happened over and over. We'd end up going to the doctor. The doctor would give him antibiotics for the fever or whatnot. And then finally, as we were digging and taking him in, he was diagnosed as having somatization, which is you actually take your emotions and you turn it into physical things inside of your body, right? He didn't really have a virus or bacteria. He wasn't really sick, but in his mind, because of his emotions, and he didn't know how to process those emotions right, it actually made his body sick. And so this is a scientific documented thing, that the way that we think, the way that we feel, the way that we process emotions has outward manifestations of illness and disease inside of your body.
Yeah, Jeremy, I like what you made a suggestion there earlier. Let's do some more on the brain starting next week. We can do a series on it, and I'll let you
Sure.
have some guidance on that. And the reason why I let Jeremy take that, because notice we're going to be talking about the brain.
Yeah.
So that's, but my point being, what was the name of Napoleon Hill's fantastic book that has changed a multitude of lives, that has spun off a bunch of other authors who wrote about the same subject in their own way? What was
TAGR, baby. Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
We need to, we need to pay attention to what we have and get off of this emotional roller coaster of life. Because, so many times we let things that we hear and see determine how happy we're going to be that day.
Yeah.
This is why I don't listen to the news. And let me say this in a non-political way. We all see all of the nonsense going on in the United States of America. It's an embarrassment to everybody. I don't care what your political leanings are. It's an embarrassment from both parties, okay? And the thing about it, you cannot legislate, regulate, and strangulate a society to have morals. Where our focus should be on is loving one another, forgiving one another, and having the wisdom to let our emotions go if someone else thinks different about something than we do.
Yeah.
Love them, respect them, and don't get involved in finger pointing. And that's what we got too much of. That's a pandemic in this country right now. And what it's doing, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of how you feel about a subject or me, it's irrelevant. How we feel about each other individually is what's relevant. If I love you, I've empowered myself. And even though we may disagree, let's disagree like reasonable people. Love
Right.
and forgiveness. I don't know anybody on planet Earth that doesn't love to be loved, and I know I got to be honest, I need a whole bunch of forgiveness. Not only for my stupidity and the dumb things that I do. I think I got my ration of that and probably fudged it on a couple other guys, but being able to love yourself first,
Yeah.
that's a prerequisite, because you can't give something that you do not own. You need to own that. Remember what I said earlier about Bill's book, right here at the top of the sentence right here, this top paragraph here, talks about this book is for anyone seeking answers and solutions and success in life. Your birthright. I want you to just embrace that. Your birthright is abundance, love, peace, and joy. That's your birthright. No one can take that from you. You can't buy it anywhere, and no robber can break in and steal it from you. You need to embrace that. Love yourself first. Love yourself enough to forgive others that think differently than you. Don't hate them. Hate is a self and a soul destroyer. It will rob you of your health, your happiness, and everything else. And remember what we talked about Napoleon Hill there. The very first word of his book was think and grow rich.
Yeah.
Not attend a webinar, not spend $1,000 and all this other stuff that we hear. And I see all these ads. Oh my goodness gracious! That pop up on Facebook, and I'm going like, yeah, you almost get punch drunk from that stuff. And they're all saying the same thing in different ways. And I'm not knocking anybody that's got a good program. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. But my point being in mentioning that, we have a tendency to look without rather than look within.
Yeah.
That's where we need to focus. We've already got everything that we need for our journey in life. We may need some specialized training. I'm not saying that. Of course we do. But as far as looking for someone to help you find yourself or find your calling, you've already got that. That's a gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you said about, loving yourself, because
Oh, yeah.
that's really what that's all about, right? I mean,
Amen.
you show me a person's choices and I can tell you if they love themselves or not, right? Um,
Ah, that's a
and
good one.
and and that's the thing, is that, if you are binge eating all the time, are you loving yourself?
Not at all.
No. If you are going out and driving recklessly all the time,
Mm.
is that loving yourself? No, right? And so, you can tell the level of love that you have for yourself, or the level of love that somebody has for themselves,
Mm.
by the choices. So look at
Yeah.
your choices, right? The
Yeah.
choices you're making. Are your choices demonstrating that you love yourself
Mm. That's
or
so
not?
true. That is so true. Because, we hear these daredevils talk about, like, I take it to the limit and all that. If you love yourself, think about it like this: you don't have to prove yourself to anybody.
No.
And I remember when Cassius Clay defeated Sonny Liston back in 1965, 64, somewhere in there. And of course, a young Cassius Clay, he's all excited and all that because he just knocked out, or just, a TKO, the heavyweight world champion of the world. And he's running around, he's hollering, I'm the greatest. And my dad, I guess he had heard enough of that. And he said, well, son, if you are the greatest, you wouldn't have to tell anybody.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have to run around and talk about it.
Yeah. And the very thing that embarrasses you, that you do, that you want nobody else to see, that is your master.
Yeah.
And we all got masters. There's no, we all do. But we need to recognize that more and understand that we need to love ourselves enough that we will not be its slave. That's the empowerment of the mind. That's the foundation right there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this has been a fantastic conversation today, and hopefully
Oh,
hopefully our
yeah.
viewers have found some value in
Oh,
it as
yeah.
well. And because here's what I'd really like to see, people walk away from this, is that, your health, your wellness is in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
in your
yeah.
mind, right?
Oh,
You
yeah.
can you can choose what your, life is going to be like. You can
Mm-hmm.
choose what level of vitality you have in your life.
Mm-hmm.
In those choices, just like I've always told my children, growing up, that, make good choices every day.
Yeah.
When I sent them off to school, I'd say
Mm-hmm.
every day, make good
Mm-hmm.
choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to do for ourselves as well. Make good choices
Yeah.
with our health and our wellness.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And as you were saying that, mine reminded me of an incident in my life when my wife was driving me to the hospital when I was experiencing my heart attack. And it wasn't anything where I grabbed my chest and fell over. I just had this burning sensation and my blood pressure was high. And I'm going to get this thing checked out. I knew, somehow I just knew, once I got to the ER, I'd be okay. So I get in the ER, my blood pressure is 190 over 111. That's not okay.
Hmm.
But I didn't let that rattle my brain. And after they told me, well, we drew blood, you definitely had a heart attack because your heart is releasing a protein. It's troponin is the chemical. And when they see that, they know you're having a heart attack.
Hmm.
And they immediately gave me 4 baby aspirins, put nitro on the tongue. And the nurse was going to put I had an IV in one arm, saline. I had the other IV, a blood thinner. The nurse is going to put something else into the tube there, needle, and inject it. And I said, because I knew I was going to be okay. And I said, you got anything there? Is there some good stuff that put me in orbit around Jupiter and give me a cheap thrill or whatever? And the other nurse, who was more serious, says, I don't think you realize how serious your condition is. Your blood pressure is 190 over 111. You're in danger of a stroke or major heart attack right now. And I remember I looked at her and I said, well, you don't have to be so optimistic about it. And she thought I was just a joke, I guess. But I was coming from an area of security. I knew that I knew somehow. I didn't know the details. It's not important to know the details. Is it important for you to know how many steps it's going to take you to go from where you are right now up to get your mail and come back? No. But my point being is that I knew it was going to be okay. And even though she said those words where I tell people blood pressure 190 over 111, I go, oh, that's high. Yes, it is. But it did not rattle my bird cage. That's the message I want you to focus on. When you have bad news, don't let it rattle your mental bird cage. And you can only do that coming from a position of love, because on the other side of the coin, under fear comes fear, flight, scarcity, all these other things that can really destroy you right there. It really can.
Absolutely. Well said, Jim. Well said.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeremy, our time's about gone, so we want to be back again next week. We're going to be talking more about we're going to get more into the brain. And the thing I like about the conversations Jeremy and I have, these are not prescripted. We follow the energy, and that's what makes it so good.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't tell anybody I said this out there in TV land, but I'm not smart enough to, to script something that good. Don't tell anybody. Let that be our secret. But Jeremy, thank you so much for being here today. Ladies and gentlemen, you see Jeremy's email there, jeremy@yourbizprofitscoach.com. Be sure and get in touch with him if you know of anyone that's suffering from diabetes or has diabetes or neuropathy, or has to put up with a guy like me. Be sure and get in touch with Jeremy. He'll be your go-to guy. And we like to have humor and fun here too. But most importantly, Jeremy and I, we sincerely hope and pray that you and your loved ones are healthy, happy, and blessed. And remember to love yourself first, then you can love others. And just as importantly, love yourself enough to forgive yourself of your shortcomings, your faults, and your mistakes. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you again, Jeremy.